You're watching News 3 Now, live at 4, moving forward.
Good afternoon and welcome to Live at 4. We begin with breaking news on this Friday.
Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul has filed a lawsuit against Elon Musk over his pledge to pay Wisconsin voters for signing an anti-activist judge petition.
The case was first assigned to Judge Susan Crawford, the liberal-backed candidate in the state Supreme Court race. She's already recused herself. The case has been reassigned to David Conway.
This news comes hours after Musk announced that he would be visiting Wisconsin this weekend on Sunday to pay those voters. It's the latest incident in which the tech billionaire and presidential advisor has inserted himself into Wisconsin politics. Groups associated with him have poured millions into the Supreme Court race in support of conservative candidate Brad Schimmel. Musk will be in Wisconsin on Sunday. We don't know where exactly yet. We'll let you know when we get that information, but only people who have signed his petition are allowed into his event. And we have more breaking news locally.
The man charged with killing 24-year-old Brooke Stratton last fall has pleaded not guilty. James Barnes Morris was in court today where his bond was set at $1 million. The Dane County District Attorney charged him earlier this week with first-degree homicide with domestic abuse.
A criminal complaint alleges Barnes Morris was the last person seen with Stratton before she disappeared, and police found her body in a pond at the UW Arboretum. Police arrested Barnes Morris shortly after and in January referred homicide charges to the district attorney. He's been in jail since, where he'll remain until his next court date on April 3rd.
This is the helpline for the Dane County Domestic Abuse Intervention Services. You can call it even if you're not in Dane County, and they'll direct you to resources in your area. You can also text them if you don't feel safe enough to call. And the numbers are right there on your screen.
Now let's get a look at the forecast. The weekend is almost here, and it feels like summer out there today, Blaze.
Yes, I'm trying to keep the wind away from my mic. It is beautiful outside. I think we're at 77 in Madison, which surpasses our record high temperature for today's date by 1 degree, but some of us are even in the 80s right now. We have to look off towards Boscobel, as well as Prairie du Chien and Lone Rock. 83 degrees. It's 60 in Watoma, 76 up there in Black River Falls, 79 in Janesville. It's breezy, as you can hear on my mic, but it is gorgeous out this afternoon. We are going to watch as showers and a few thunderstorms make their way out of northern Wisconsin into southern Wisconsin as we go overnight. That's going to be along a cold front, and where that cold front ultimately sets up for your Saturday is going to determine who's going to be in the 60s tomorrow and who's going to be more or less in those upper 30s to low 40s. We're going to be watching as rain showers move in throughout your Saturday as well. We do find a marginal risk just off to our north. There's a severe thunderstorm warning near Duluth right now, so that severe weather activity staying off to our north even at this hour. Maybe some small hail like what we saw this morning as we go overnight for folks further north and west. But we are tracking not only showers, but also a few thunderstorms and rain and snow in the full forecast. We'll time that out in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Blaze. Governor Tony Evers says the Trump administration has alerted him Wisconsin will not receive millions of dollars in already approved funding for health services. The governor says the administration sent him a notice of plans to take away $210 million meant for local emergency mental health and addiction resources. Some of the affected resources include the suicide crisis line, access to fentanyl test strip kits, local emergency response teams, and the state's immunization registry.
Wisconsin will not revert to the use of its older standardized test scoring scale. The governor vetoed a Republican-authored bill to do so this morning. The bill sought to undo a move from State Superintendent Jill Underly, which lowered the threshold for school district performance report cards. Governor Evers, a former state superintendent himself, had opposed those changes when Underly made them, but said the Republicans' bill to change the standards back undermines the superintendent's authority. GOP State Senator Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu said in vetoing the bill, the governor failed Wisconsin students.
More than 600,000 people across Wisconsin are experiencing food insecurity, meaning they don't know where their next meal will come from.
Our Ellie La Liberté shows us how local restaurants are stepping in to help for this year's Food Fight Against Hunger campaign.
It may seem like just $1 at a time, but this $1 serves a bigger purpose.
Every April, for the past 15 years, Second Harvest Food Bank of Southern Wisconsin partners with Food Fight Restaurant Group. It's a group comprised of 15 restaurants in the Madison area. Those 15 restaurants all have a special menu for the campaign. It includes an appetizer, entree, dessert, and drink. $1 from every menu will go towards Second Harvest. According to the food bank, the need is greater than ever.
It's a unique opportunity for people to give back. It's not just reaching into your wallet, writing that check, or pulling out your credit card. It's something unique. Have a drink, have a meal, and you're giving back to others. That's what makes it really cool every year.
For every $10 Second Harvest receives, it's able to provide $24 worth of groceries. The fundraising goal this year is $15,000.
For more information on all the menus and participating restaurants, just visit secondharvestsw.org/foodfight. Reporting in Madison, Ellie La Liberté, News 3 Now.
Thank you, Ellie. The guests will also be able to add a donation to their dine-in bill or ask to add a donation for phone and carry-out orders.
Well, next on Live at 4, how people in Greenland are receiving the vice president's visit.
Plus, the latest move President Trump has made in his legal showdown with a judge over the deportations of Venezuelan migrants. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The Trump administration has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to urgently lift a district judge's temporary restraining order blocking the deportation of alleged gang members under the Alien Enemies Act. The appeal follows Wednesday's 2-1 ruling by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals to uphold Judge James Boasberg's ruling. Trump last week invoked the Alien Enemies Act to deport more than 200 alleged migrant gang members to El Salvador without due process.
Current and former U.S. officials say the attack plan texts between members of the Trump administration over Signal may have done long-term damage to the United States' ability to gather intelligence.
National Security Advisor Mike Waltz accidentally added Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg to the chat when discussing plans to strike Yemen's Houthi rebels. Publicly, the administration has said it's confident in the national security team, but behind closed doors, sources are leaking to the press that President Trump is unhappy. Amid the fallout, Waltz is in Greenland today with the vice president. The vice president is visiting a U.S. military base to receive a briefing on Arctic security issues and to meet with service members. The visit comes despite pushback from Greenland's people and politicians who opposed the president's statements about annexing Greenland. The president doubled down on that desire earlier today.
At least 150 people are dead after 2 violent earthquakes rocked Southeast Asia this morning. That number is expected to grow. The magnitude 7.7 quake sent a skyscraper in Bangkok to the ground, and witnesses there reported violent shaking for up to a minute and then a 6.6 aftershock just minutes later. The quake was centered across the border in Myanmar near the country's second largest city of Mandalay.
Out today, the Commerce Department's latest data on consumer spending. It shows the economy remained relatively solid in February, rising by 0.4%. The data also shows the personal consumption expenditures price index rose 2.5% from a year ago. Some economists are warning that things could change soon with the Trump administration's new tariffs on auto imports.
The Brewers have their home opener on Monday. The News 3 Now This Morning crew will be out at AmFam Field ahead of the game, and you'll remember last year the team played in rainy conditions. But, as our Andrew Banstra found, that didn't stop fans from tailgating.
Nope, never does. You can watch the Brewers home opener against the Kansas City Royals. Coverage starts at 1 o'clock and the game gets underway at 1:10. You can watch it right here on News 3.
Oh my goodness, today would have been the best day for a home opener, but what will we be looking at come Monday, Blaze?
Yeah, today would have been great. We're looking at slightly different conditions for Monday. We're going to be on the backside of a low pressure system, so we're looking at breezy northerly winds, some snow in the morning hours out there in Milwaukee, starting out in the low 30s. And as the day goes on, we'll lose the cloud cover and temperatures eventually topping out in those upper 30s to low 40s. So as you're heading there, just make sure that you're dressed for the occasion, but obviously being inside with the roof on. I doubt that we're going to be dealing with any of the cold temperatures as well as the snow, but just keep in mind it's going to be a cooler start to our next work week. Speaking of starting off, we had some hail this morning in Stoughton as some storms moved through the area. Thank you, Davin, for sending us these small little hailstones there. You can always send any of your weather photos either by scanning this QR code or by heading over to our website. We've got a whole bunch of photos from all you guys, and we'd love to see what you're seeing across central and southern Wisconsin, especially during weather events, but always make sure that you're staying safe when you're taking those photos. We talked about the snow on Monday. That's going to be especially during the morning hours. Until that point, storms tonight, that's going to turn over to more just general rain as we go into your Saturday, especially Saturday night into Sunday. We're going to watch where the cold front ultimately settles overnight into early Saturday, because if it settles further south, more of us will be cooler than warmer. But if it stays further to our north, more of us will be back into those 50s and 60s for your Saturday. But especially overnight Saturday into Sunday, that next low pressure system moves out of the plains. Most of that rain and snow and even ice staying off to our north before those flurries move on in overnight Sunday into Monday. While there is a severe thunderstorm warning there up in Duluth, they're actually bracing for either a winter storm watch or winter weather advisory there in the purple, an ice storm warning there in this kind of more vibrant purple. So if you've got friends or family in this area, know that they're going to be dealing with potentially quite a lot of ice. We'll take a look at those totals in just a moment. Further to the south, we're going to be primarily dealing with rain to the tune of 1 to 2 inches of that rain throughout this weekend. In terms of snow, probably less than an inch, but this is going to be more of that wet, heavy snow. The good news is, as we continue to make our way out of March into April, our daytime highs stay above freezing, so we'll do a lot of melting, not only on Monday, but into Tuesday as well. Where they have that ice storm warning, possibly a ½ an inch of ice falling up there near Rhinelander across northern Wisconsin, and that could pose some very dangerous conditions, especially on power lines and in tree branches. So if you've got friends or family in this area, you may want to check on them as we head throughout the weekend because of that expected ice. 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s on your Saturday. So depending on where you're at, it's either going to feel like fall or it's going to feel, or summer, excuse me, or it's going to feel like winter. But we will continue to watch as temperatures drop throughout the day on Saturday, with the rain finally wrapping up by about Wednesday of next week.
Thank you very much, Blaze. Well, researchers at UW-Madison say a drug typically prescribed for arthritis halts brain-damaging seizures in mice with epilepsy.
It's fascinating. The drug also restores short-term and working memory lost to epilepsy. If the drug ends up viable for humans, it would be the first to provide lasting relief from seizures, even after patients stop taking it, which is remarkable news for people who are living with epilepsy. The authors of the study, Professor Avtar Rupra and researcher Olivia Hoffman, are with us today. Welcome to you both.
Hi.
Olivia, let's start with you. What is the name of the drug, and how did you figure out that it helps with epilepsy?
So the drug is called tofacitinib, and we, as scientists, get to play with some really fun toys. So one of the things that we can do nowadays is take every single cell in the brain, bust it open, and find out what the gene levels are. And so when we did that in mice, we found a target, STAT3, and we realized a drug already exists out there to target it. So, it was kind of a happenstance in that way. But then when we looked, we also found our target in the brains of humans who've had to undergo brain surgery because the current epilepsy medications aren't working for them. And that's about 1/3 of patients. So if we can get this to humans, it would be huge.
Yeah, and why aren't those medications working very well then?
Well, there are a lot. That's a whole field of research.
Need more time.
But one of the things is, they're mostly aimed at suppressing the seizures. And that's because we don't really know what mechanisms are underlying those seizures. Seizures are symptoms of epilepsy, which, and we haven't really begun to fully untangle the disease and the processes that underlie those seizures.
Avtar, 1 in 26 people will be diagnosed with epilepsy. Put in perspective for us how significant this research is, or could be.
So as Olivia says, there are no drugs which can cure the disease. You will be on these drugs for a very long time, if not forever. What we were looking for is the holy grail of research, which is a drug which we can give for a brief period, take it away, and the patients will be left seizure-free and their memory and cognition returned back to normal. And at least in our lab experiments, that's what we have found. So this will impact probably 50 to 60,000 people in Wisconsin alone. We are very, very excited.
Yeah. For people who have been waiting for hope, for something new, to stop suffering or to stop seeing their loved ones suffering, I mean, what do you think of when you are helping maybe bring that to them?
It's that personal connection is very important.
Yeah.
And so we are very lucky. We have Lily's Fund helping us fund our research.
And they're at the local level.
And they're at the local level. And so via them, through them, we meet patients and people who care for people with epilepsy. And that's a real motivator for our efforts to ensure that we are focused on the task at hand.
Some of the money for your grant is coming from the NIH, I understand. Are you worried at all with federal funding cuts that you might lose that money?
Yeah, it's a very scary time because the bulk of our research funding comes from the NIH. And with these current cuts, we are in danger of having to shut down this research perhaps forever, because when people leave the lab because we can't pay them, they don't come back, they get other jobs.
And they take knowledge with them.
They take all the expertise and knowledge with them. So it's an extremely precarious and scary time, and it's quite gut-wrenching to not know what's going to happen next. So it's scary.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your research with us, and hopefully this helps a lot of people.
And please come back
Yes.
as it progresses, because by the time we get to the human trials, what kind of time frame are we looking at? Because that's a hard question to answer, I guess.
This drug's already approved for humans for other diseases, so hoping it'd be a rapid timeline. So maybe we'll see you in 2 weeks. About 5 years.
You'll be able to say you saw it here first. Thank you both. Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you.
We'll be right back.
Well, we're looking ahead to the election on Tuesday, which is breaking all kinds, as you know, of fundraising records.
And we're also seeing an increase in early voting turnout in this race. Political reporter Will Keneally is here to break it all down for us. Will?
Well, it's kind of handy to compare this race to the last Supreme Court race that we saw 2 years ago. Now, that saw a Liberal candidate beat the Conservative candidate in that race. Now, for Liberals trying to defend this seat this year, or Conservatives trying to flip that seat and flip control of the state Supreme Court back for Conservatives, where do they need to watch out for? One election expert that we spoke to says look to the suburban Green Bay area.
There are around a dozen counties in Wisconsin that Dan Kelly lost 2 years ago, that a conservative candidate simply has to win. And the three big ones are Brown, Outagamie, and Winnebago. We call those the bow counties. Those are Wisconsin. They're not just swing counties, but they're big counties, lots of votes.
Now, this is part of a larger discussion that we had on the state of the race, including how some of the down ballot races might fare it out and how that might impact the top of the ticket state Supreme Court race. You can see more this Sunday at 10:30 on For the Record.
Now, early voting has been pretty robust.
Very robust. Yeah.
Does that normally bode well for one side over, or better for one side over another?
So we're seeing really interesting trends. April elections, traditionally low turnout elections.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that actually favors liberals and Democrats in that race. You tend to think, especially since Trump has been elected, people that vote in these races are diehards, right? A little bit more educated, though, too, because they know that that race is on the ballot. We've seen a shift in those people away from conservatives and a little bit more to liberals now since Trump has been in office. But like you say, just checking checking my notes here. It's about 53% increase that we've seen from 2 years ago to this year. Compare that with doubling essentially the spending from 2 years ago to this year. A lot of attention, certainly in this race as well.
And I keep thinking about that Marquette Law School poll in which people who were surveyed said they didn't have much of an opinion about either candidate, but here they are, we're getting that early turnout. Do you think the issues are really pushing people to get to the polls despite not having an opinion about the candidates?
I think so, and I think the people voting now have already made up their minds, as you would expect. We've seen a huge pop both in Milwaukee and Dane counties in that early voting. Also the Wow County, suburban Milwaukee, which is kind of the traditional hotbed of conservative politics in the state as well. The interesting thing that we've seen, just trends kind of politically, is Democrats, liberals tend to vote early. They've put a lot of effort into that ground game, mail-in voting, early voting, that kind of stuff. We've started to see Republicans do a little bit more of that now, especially with Trump this past election, conservatives pushing this bank your vote idea. So now that's a little bit more of an even playing field. We don't necessarily know just by the raw numbers anymore of how that might shape the race.
4 days away. Can't believe it.
Yes.
It's busy 4 days for you.
Indeed.
Will, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And you can find all of our spring election coverage at channel3000.com and on the free Channel 3000 mobile app. Download it now to receive live updates on the race Tuesday night. And coming up on Live at 4, an update from Madison Police on their search for a new chief.
And 23andMe is going bankrupt. Arman Rahman shows us how you can protect your data if you've used it. We'll be right back.
You're watching News 3 Now, live at 4, moving forward.
Oh, they have the right idea. A little bit of sun today is the best thing.
Isn't this fantastic? These are students on the UW campus, obviously, at James Madison Park, but it's hard to believe it's 75 degrees today, and we're talking about rain and possibly snow in the forecast this weekend, Blaze. I guess that's Wisconsin for you. Wait 5 minutes.
It is, yeah. We're still kind of easing out of winter. Folks to our north are getting ready for a winter storm. They've got winter storm warnings, winter storm watches, even ice storm warnings across northern Wisconsin. But we're sitting underneath that warm air. 83 stretching from Lone Rock back into Boscobel. We were at 83 in Prairie du Chien earlier. We made it to 80 in Platteville. We're at 77 in Madison, which is a new record high temperature for today's date. We're at 82 in Sauk City, 81 in Middleton, and 79 in Belleville. 80s across western parts of Dane County. Winds are a bit breezy, but it is just a very overall pleasant afternoon, to say the least. I think pleasant is underselling today's conditions. Now, as we go overnight, we will watch as a cold front moves its way southwards. It will bring us some showers and maybe a few thunderstorms across mainly northwestern parts of our forecast area. Some small hail may be possible, but as we mentioned, the rain turns over to snow this weekend, and we've got all the details here in just a few minutes.
Well, this week, biotech startup 23andMe declared bankruptcy, announcing it is seeking a buyer.
Arman Rahman has more on what do you do if you sent in your personal genetic data? How can you protect it?
For the past 19 years, people have sent their DNA samples to 23andMe. The company's labs have then used those DNA samples to uncover family trees, medical history, and more. But now that they're filing for bankruptcy, experts say you should step in before your personal information is handed off to someone else. That's because your health data is now considered a corporate asset. Technology expert Dorothea Salo says current privacy laws, especially for biotech startups and mobile apps, are flimsy and allow the information to be sold to whatever company controls the assets and eventually even the dark web. That has real implications for your actual health care.
So there's a real danger here that your costs go up because now your healthcare providers and your insurers know things about your health that they don't have to keep secret, that they don't have to keep confidential, and that they can legally use to charge you more.
So how do you delete your data? Salo says the website has been backed up by requests recently, but urges you to try and log in, go to settings, scroll to 23andMe data, click view, delete data, and scroll all the way down to permanently delete data. Now there are other ways to research your genetic history right here in southern Wisconsin. I'll have more on those tonight at 6. For now, reporting in Madison, Arman Rahman, News 3 Now.
Thank you, Armand. A new survey shows Americans are more worried about rising unemployment than they've been in more than 15 years. The University of Michigan released a survey today showing consumer sentiment tanked 12% this month. Respondents blame President Trump's erratic trade war for their concerns. The survey director says 2/3 of consumers expect unemployment to rise in the year ahead. The latest economic data driving U.S. stocks down to close out the week. The Dow lost 716 points, the Nasdaq lost 481, and the S&P 500 is down 112.
A 25-year-old man is in the Dane County Jail this afternoon for a hit-and-run crash last week. Madison police responded to a gas station on Northport Drive last Friday night. A driver allegedly swerved to avoid another car and ended up pinning a woman between his truck and a propane tank rack. When officers tried to approach him, he sped away. After putting out tire spikes, they found his empty truck with flat tires in the area of Warner Park. They arrested him Wednesday, and he is facing multiple charges.
The board in charge of choosing Madison's new police chief says it's now starting the process to appoint former police chief Sean Barnes' successor. In a statement today, the board says it wants to have the process over by September. Commissioners want input from you on who should take over the role. To do that, you can go to the board's regular meetings the second Monday of each month at 5:30 p.m. Those are virtual, and you can find the link of the city on the City of Madison's website. You can also submit written input to pfc@cityofmadison.com.
Well, if you've been to Cottage Grove recently, you may have noticed a lot of yard signs lining the streets.
Yeah, they are everywhere, but not just with candidates' names on them. Maddie Heimsch explains the local library referendum and why it's become so controversial in Cottage Grove.
The April 1st election, in which voters in the village of Cottage Grove will be asked to support a referendum for a library, is just days away. But the proposal of that library, decades in the making.
While groups have been advocating for a local library since the early 2000s, renewed interest sparked in October when the Learning Ladder daycare closed. And while many believe that the library could operate out of the Learning Ladder building, structural problems led to a recommendation that the building be torn down and rebuilt for $8.2 million, a task that some believe to be too costly.
To put a $475 a year annual incremental library tax on the average home in Cottage Grove is asking a lot. I would love to have a library in Cottage Grove, but I think the priorities of Cottage Grove need to be balanced against the taxpayers.
The referendum question on the ballot asks to raise the property tax levy by $1.3 million per year. If the question is approved, costs will also be covered in part by the village's capital campaign and donations from the community.
Reporting in the village of Cottage Grove, I'm Maddie Heimsch, News 3 Now.
Thank you, Maddie. And coming up on News 3 Now at 6, we'll hear from the president of the library board about what she says a library could offer residents beyond just books.
Well, this is your final reminder on Live at 4 to vote for a local veteran that you think deserves the Spirit of Service Award. Our partners at Vortex narrowed the more than 200 nominations down to the final 5. Voting is now open on channel3000.com, and you can cast your vote through March 30th. You can look for the stories on News 3 Now and our mobile app, and we'll announce the winner of the $5,000 grand prize on April 2nd.
Well, coming up, the premiere of the latest season of the Great American Baking Show is just around the corner.
One of the contestants lives right here in Madison, and he shared his story and a little bit of his baking expertise with us. That's when Live at 4 returns.
Well, if you love the Great British Bake Off,
I could
guilty
binge
as
it for
charged.
hours.
Well, perhaps then you'll want to watch its American cousin. Plus, you may see someone you'll recognize.
The Great American Baking Show is about to kick off its newest season on Roku, and this season features a Madison man who is putting his best baking forward to earn the top prize and bragging rights.
We talked with Daniel Freiberger about what it was like to be on the show, and he gave us some cake decorating tips for your next get-together. Daniel Freiberger, thank you for being on with us on Live at 4.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
So you are a contestant on the new season of Great American Baking Show.
Yes.
What was that like, being on such a fast-paced, recognizable show?
I thought it was really fun. It was, Paul and Prue, so it was great to bake for them and meet all the other fellow bakers. I had a great time.
So what is your baking background, and why did you decide to apply to be on this show?
Yeah, so I've always baked a little bit kind of casually growing up, and I just love the idea of really testing myself and pushing the boundaries. That's kind of how I bake day to day, so it was a fun challenge.
You're just a home baker.
Yes.
And so why did you say, I'm going to apply for this?
I just really like the idea of trying to fit, it's like a puzzle. You're trying to fit something that meets the brief into the time that they give you. So it's just a fun way to stretch yourself.
Now, before Susan and I claw at this,
Yeah,
you brought us this really good cake. It's a lemon cake.
It's lemon, yep.
So what are we doing with this? How do you make this look presentable the way you do?
Yeah, so it's springtime, so I was going to do like a watercolor design, and that's a really versatile thing where you just kind of smooth a bunch of colors together. It's really easy, so.
And it's really easy.
Yeah. I think it's a very accessible tool for a home baker, but you just kind of take globs and kind of slap them on wherever, kind of semi-artistically. And then we'll kind of do some magic in the minute where we smooth it all together.
And this is all icing that you made. You didn't, no canned stuff.
And this is all self-taught?
I would never.
Did you ever have any formal training as a baker?
Nope, just all the internet, lots of cookbooks. My favorite bakers from the British show. That's where I learned a lot of it, is watching them bake and their cookbooks.
Well, the Great British Baking Show is iconic. The American version of it is becoming a lot more popular. But is it the same setup as the British version?
It's very similar. So this is actually the third season with Roku, and since Roku, they got the same judges and the same tent and everything like that. So it's a very similar vibe to the British one.
When you met, people like Paul Hollywood, Prue, Casey Wilson as the host, how did you keep your fandom inside? Because you had to have your game face on and compete.
So when you're meeting them for the first time, you're actually in the middle of your first bake in the tent. So I'm not really, don't have time to be starstruck. I'm busy trying to do the best I can on my bake. So it was an experience.
Very good. Okay, so now we have this. So what is this going to happen?
Now this is where the magic happens. You just kind of take a scraper and scrape it around the cake. And it's a very forgiving technique. So you can kind of do as much or as little as you want here.
Oh, that's nice.
And it just kind of creates, you can make it really smooth, you can make it kind of rustic, it makes these striations, and it's meant to look kind of like a watercolor painting.
It's perfect for spring.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know Susan asked you how you got into baking, but you have a cool story, and it goes back to your family and watching your parents in the kitchen, and then your aunt too.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we had a trip to Europe with my aunt, and she was gluten-free, and one of the things we would eat were French macarons. When I got back to Indiana, there were no French macarons in my little small town, so I said, I can probably make those. Little did I know they're a notoriously finicky bake, so that really caused me to have to iterate and practice, and that really sparked my love for it.
Wow. So you shot this in England.
Yes.
How long were you there?
About 5 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when does it air here?
It airs here on April 11th. On Roku.
Can't wait.
Good. You'll have a lot of people watching. Okay, so you have like a blowtorch now.
So this is a little tip. To get your cakes really smooth, you can just kind of heat up the scraper if it's metal. So I'm just going to do that and give it one more kind of twirl.
Is that just like a creme brulee torch?
Yeah, exactly. You can use it for anything. And that kind of gives you that really nice finish here.
This makes me want to up my game.
Yeah, exactly. What flavor cake is this?
This is lemon. I was actually just going to top it with a couple of lemons. This is a good base for kind of any kind of decoration. You can do more or less. If I was at home, I'd probably spend 45 minutes kind of just making it look perfect, but...
All right, so you're going to give us a baking lesson sometime, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Deal.
Good luck on everything. You can't give us any hints, right?
No, you have to watch on Roku, April 11th.
April 11th on Roku. We wish you the best of luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very
I am a
much.
huge fan of the show. I will be watching for sure.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you
Great
very
to
much.
meet you.
You too.
I laughed because whenever he'd say like, oh, it's easy, you can do this. Very talented.
Yeah, very talented. And yeah, you don't get a prize. The winner, you get a cake stand.
Yeah,
if you
basically
win.
a trophy.
And the bragging rights, yeah.
And he mentioned, he applied for this 3 times. He had to do the written application, be on video. And then at one point he told me for one of the casting calls, he had to drive a cake down to Chicago.
Oh, right.
He said that was very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and in his day job, he's a computer programmer at Epic.
Yeah.
So he's really like a Renaissance kind of a guy. So tune in on Roku, April 12th, and let's all wish him luck.
Yeah, good luck to you, Daniel. We're rooting for you.
Coming up on Live at 4, Blaze will tell us when we may see some snow, believe it or not, on an 80-degree day in his weekend forecast.
And the beautiful sight that's sending thousands of people to Washington, D.C. this weekend. We'll be right back. What a beautiful shot of Annapolis, Maryland right now.
Isn't that a pretty, have you ever been there?
I have not, no.
That's a very, very pretty town.
Now I want to go.
On the water, kind of like we are, and we're even warmer today.
Yeah, it's 57 and cloudy there, Blaze, so we win.
Yeah, we're at least 20 degrees warmer than that. We had some hail this morning all along a warm front lifting northwards. Thank you, Davin, for sending these little hailstones out of Stoughton. You can send us your weather photos, whether it's severe weather or not. Obviously, be careful when taking severe weather photos by scanning that QR code or heading over to our website. Take a look at where that warm front eventually settled, right? Stretching from Minneapolis, south of Eau Claire, where you see the yellow. We're in the 70s in Madison, 84 in La Crosse, 80s across southwestern Wisconsin, 36 in Rhinelander, 32 in Superior, where they just had a severe thunderstorm warning. So that warm front really did its job, brought up the warmer air, brought up the windy conditions. Now we're going to turn our attention to the cold front of this same system, because where that eventually sets up on Saturday is going to determine who's going to be warm tomorrow versus who's going to be on the cooler side for your Saturday. So this low pressure system will continue to slide its way eastward as we go overnight into early Saturday. Right now it has the cold front kind of cutting right through Dane County, so that would put us in southern Wisconsin probably on the warmer side. Further to the north, that means that we're likely going to be on the cooler side as our next system moves on in. Pink and blue there indicating that rain snow mix, ice, as well as just pure snow across northern Wisconsin, whereas southern Wisconsin, we're going to be dealing with rain, maybe a thunderstorm or two, and across southwestern Wisconsin tomorrow, we may squeeze out some thunderstorms that could produce some small hail like what we saw this morning, but it's going to be very dependent on our temperatures. If that cold front slides further south, we'll likely not have enough warmth to get those really robust thunderstorms and that hail. The snow wraps up as we go into your Monday, so we're not looking at a whole lot of snow here across southern Wisconsin. For Saturday, we're looking at temperatures to range from the mid-30s to the low to mid-60s. Warmer temperatures further to the south, but across the northern parts of Wisconsin, if you're heading there this weekend, winter storm watch in the blue, ice storm warning there in the purple, winter storm warning in the pink, severe thunderstorm warning just off to the north and west exiting Duluth, where they're in the mid-30s. Snow about an inch and greater across northern Wisconsin. Further to the south, we're looking at minimal accumulations, significant ice across northern Wisconsin to the tune of a half an inch of ice, if not more, which is going to be possibly weighing down power lines and tree branches. So if you've got friends or family in northern Wisconsin, tell them to get ready for possibly that heavy, heavy ice. Monday, of course, being the Brewers' home opener, even though we have the roof, we have to touch on the weather. It is going to be a bit on the chillier side compared to today. We'll be hanging out in the 30s by the afternoon with those morning flurries and light snow showers wrapping on up. There is a look at your 7 and 10-day forecast. Pretty seasonal for this time of year. We're saying goodbye to the 70s and the 80s and hanging out in the 40s and 50s as we end March and kick off April.
Well, it's
Friday!
And this Feelgood Friday, the iconic Yoshino cherry trees lining Washington, D.C.'s tidal basin are in full bloom.
Oh, check it out. They're drawing scores of visitors to the tradition that is associated with the beginning of spring in the U.S. Aren't they pretty?
Beautiful.
Well, more than 70% of the blooms are open, marking the start of the phase known as peak bloom. The length of peak bloom depends on weather conditions, according to local meteorologists. During ideal weather, the peak can last for several days. Have you seen this in person?
It's on my bucket list.
Ooh.
I never have. Nope. But that's one thing that'll bring all of Washington together.
Yes, and that makes us feel good.
If you have a story you'd like us to run on Feelgood Friday, submit your email to tips@channel3000.com with the subject line Feelgood Friday. We'll be right back. Coming up Monday on Live at 4, we'll talk to the leaders of both state political parties ahead of the state Supreme Court election. And coming up later tonight at 6, how the president's tariffs could drive up the price of having a wedding. Thanks for watching Live at 4 with us today, everybody. Hope to see you back here right here on Monday. News 3 Now at 5 starts right after this.